What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday, and today we are going to do a versus between the Fanstoys gears versus the BadCube gears. Now, there's a huge year gap between these two. The BadCube is from 2017. This is obviously from 2023. So we're going to take that into account. And that BadCube one has really stood up and held up over the years. You know, it still feels decent on a shelf. So we're going to take that into account as well. Obviously, with this stuff, sometimes there's stuff beyond my control. Like when we talk about scaling and stuff, we use the Sunbow chart because we need some sort of point of reference to set a standard for all the inconsistencies that are with G1. But other than that, I try to be as objective as possible. Of course, my subjective feelings are going to come into some of it. Some of it is subjective. With that being said, though, a little bit of housekeeping. I had told the Patreon folks last week that this was the last week for the DMH books being open. I was a doof. This is the last week for the DMH books being open. I think Friday is the last day. I'll try to give you guys a reminder on Thursday. For those that are interested in that or other sit-down Saturdays or whatever the case may be, Patreon is open and all the DMH art stuff is open to the public for the month of September to order, and then they close October 1st. Easiest way to do this is to go to the Facebook, click on photos, click on albums, click on the album of your choice, usually Transformers, and go from there. And of course we have the blankets, the mugs, everything else, but it's for it's Patreon exclusive because I just can't keep all that stuff in stock. So even if you don't want to join the Patreon, join for a month for $1 and then you can make the order. Or don't, either way, fine. But it's good stuff over there and plenty of it. Back to the topic at hand. I'm kind of anxious to see how this works out because I think it's going to be kind of close just because I think that this is probably the best BadCube offering, maybe this or the Sunstreaker. So I think it'll be interesting how it all shakes out. So there's nothing left to do but get started, and you know where we start. Accessory wise, they both come with a gun. The FT comes with 2. But the BadCube comes with the tape that goes in his chest, so that eliminates those 2. They both come with the thing for the hand that I forgot to show on the FT, and to be honest, I didn't really forget, I just didn't see it in the packaging, but they do come with it. But FT comes with all of the additional faces, giving FT the win for accessories. As far as gimmicks go, they both have the thing under the chest, so they tie there. Moving on to build and materials. Materials-wise, they both feel good. The BadCube has die-cast in the feet, so they tie out for materials. Build-wise, they're both built fairly well, so I'm going to tie them out for build. But as we move on to hardware, the FT has those ratchets in the thighs, the BadCube has none, and therefore the FT takes hardware. Moving on to sculpt and paint, the FT is fully painted, the BadCube is partially painted and then relies on paint accents on non-painted pieces. This automatically puts the FT in the win category for paint. Sculpt-wise, looking at them from the front, like there's things I like better, of course, about the Fanstoys, specifically the feet, right? That's where it really takes the lead, I think, in comparison to the gears on the right, the BadCube one. But I really don't think there's anything super egregiously better. Like, I think when you look at them like this, the Fanstoys looks better. I think if you were to look at them on a shelf, I don't think you would really necessarily notice unless you were into this stuff. But because of the feet, I think I gotta give it to Fanstoys from the front. Looking at the heads from the front, I like the eye shape on the BadCube better, but the Fanstoys does have an alternate face sculpt that has that same eye expression. I like the silver paint better than the gray, but they're both painted and they're both pretty much sculpted equally, so I'm tying them out from the front. From the side, pretty much the same thing. From the chest, I mean, I don't think there's anything necessarily blowout from one compared to the other. They're very, very similar. One does gray, one does silver. One, the kind of cross is a bit wider, one's a bit more narrow, but I don't think there's anything kind of like blow out the other one from the water sort of deal. From the side, I'm gonna tie it as well. I think the Fanstoys is cleaner and more cohesive, but I like stuff like being able to see the tires and stuff. I like it feeling like a machine. Obviously, Fanstoys would take the paint. Anytime that blue shows, Fanstoys is gonna take anything. But just aesthetically, you know, I don't think that one is necessarily a clear winner over the other. I think it's more preference. Looking at the arms, once again, like, I like the sculpted differences in the BadCube, like the little notches on the shoulder, the ridges on the elbow, but I think that the Fanstoys is better proportioned, so I'm tying them out. Now from the side, I'm not crazy about the total lack of detail in the Fanstoys. However, I hate seeing mushroom cap cavities like you see on the BadCube, so I'm giving the point here to Fanstoys, which will make them win the arms. For the pelvis, I don't think either are amazing, but the universal joint joints sit too low in the BadCube, which makes the pelvis stand out more, and therefore I'm going to give that to Fanstoys as well. From the side, similar situation. I don't think there's anything great about the Fanstoys, but I hate seeing all of the kind of action figure engineering on the BadCube, so once again, I'm going to give it to Fanstoys. Now, the legs are really where Fanstoys kills it. I happen to like the silver better than the gray, and they both have the bump outs on the shins, but BadCube really kind of gets an E for effort with what they do with the feet. It just looks like a bunch of flaps folded together, whereas the Fanstoys actually looks like a foot. From the side, same sort of thing. The foot looks atrocious. The sliding pin on the red on the BadCube, it just kind of all falls apart. The Fanstoys is cohesive, it's cleaner, it's more purposeful, just works. From the back, the Fanstoys looks better. Once again, it mainly comes down to the legs, but the legs really eat the BadCube up, so that is what it is. So they tie at the head, they tie at the torso. Fanstoys takes the arms, because it looks better from the side. It doesn't have the whole action figure engineering exposed. Pelvis for the same reasons. And the lower legs, because they just are done infinitely better. It also looks better from the front and the back overall, but I am going to give the thighs to BadCube. And let's move on to articulation. So it's a pop-up hinge swivel. You can get up to there, the slightest bit down, and a swivel. Nothing back, nothing forward, just the swivel. Shoulders go out 90 degrees and get you 360 around. BadCube uses a ball peg on a hinge, which basically acts like a universal similarly to the Fanstoys, but it gets you up 90 degrees as well. Yeah, and you could spin it around. Now, the Fanstoys does have that pop-out flap. I think that's kind of an engineering cheat, so I'm not going to give them the point for that. I'm going to tie them out. Bicep swivel, bicep swivel. A surprising double-jointed elbow for the full run. A single-hinged elbow that gets you greater than 90 degrees. Wrist swivel with fingers on a base pin knuckle. Nothing, really. You get a little bit of wrist up and down, and the fingers are locked in space. Waist swivel with an ab crunch. Waist swivel, no ab crunch. Universals for hips that get you out to 90 degrees, forward to 90 degrees, and back to a fair range. Universals for hips that get you out to 90 degrees, forward to just shy of 90 degrees, but back to 90 degrees. There's actually a wider range of motion in this hip than in the Fanstoys. Thigh swivel, thigh swivel. Double jointed knee for the full run. Technically a double jointed knee, but only to kind of just short of 90 degrees. No ankle tilts, but you do get an ankle rocker. It's slightly limited. Ankle tilt up, ankle tilt down, and a ankle rocker that's probably pretty similarly matched in that regard. So they tie at the shoulder, bicep, and thigh. BadCube takes the hips because it has a wider range of motion, and the ankles for the same reason. Fanstoys takes the head movement, double jointed elbows, wrist swivel, hand articulation, ab crunch, double jointed knee for a win in this category as well. So according to the scale chart, the Sumbo scale chart, Gear should be about the same size as Bumblebee. He should come up to the bottom of Braun's head, and he should come up to about the torso area of the Datsun profile. The Fanstoys is significantly bigger. The BadCube is much closer to the proper scale chart. So the BadCube takes the category. Moving on to the transformations. So in a rare twist of fate, this was actually one of BadCube's easier transformations and more straightforward transformations, more fluid, more natural, more intuitive transformations, and I can say the same for Fanstoys. Sometimes these companies would both irritate me to a point where I'd tie them out for being obnoxious on both ends, but the truth is that they were both pretty good. But I gotta say, the Fanstoys is good and interesting, whereas the BadCube is good for them, but a little awkward, a little clumsy, and the Fanstoys kind of sneaks in and takes this category in a rare twist of fate. As for the alt modes, I'm tying them out. Fanstoys is trying to make the cartoon accurate alt mode, and it does that 100%. BadCube is trying to have a realistic alt mode, which I personally prefer, but it does that pretty well as well. And as a result, I'm tying them out. I think they both nailed what they were trying to do in a very high capacity. As for accuracy, we gotta give it to the Fanstoys. I think it really comes down to the legs. Like, I don't think the top half of the BadCube is all that off. Like, I actually think there's an argument that the BadCube upper half is more cartoon accurate, whereas like the chest and like symbol on the chest for the Fanstoys is a lot broader and wider. It's not that that way in the design, but BadCube just takes the legs and throws them as far away as they can in terms of the design, so Fanstoys takes the win here. Now, as far as price, the BadCube retailed at $80, the Fanstoys at $120 to $130, usually dependent upon shipping expenses, which gives BadCube the win. Now, BadCube came out in 2017, so we go to our handy dandy inflation calculator and we find out that $80 is now worth $100, still giving BadCube the point for price. All right, which one do you think looks better?
That one.
All right.
Same. Same one.
All right, I'll take Jana.
Oh, his head looks a little ridiculous.
Yes. I saw that's not everything I put in the trash can made it into the trash bag today.
Oh, no. I don't know what you're talking about.
I've been trying to throw away these 2 gag gifts that I got recently into that trash can there. And Jana's responsible for the trash around here. But she sat one up here instead of putting in the trash bag. And then she sat the other one here in the bathroom for me. So, what a gal. Which do you think looks better?
Probably this one.
Alright, then you want to pick them up.
This one doesn't feel very good. This one doesn't. Both of them could use work.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say probably this. Ooh.
That one?
Yeah.
Okay. Which one do you think looks better?
That one, because that one has a tiny face.
Alright, pick them up real quick. Tiny face. And which one feels better?
That one.
Okay, thank you.
I like tiny face.
Which one do you think looks better?
The one
Get close.
this one.
Okay, and you want to pick them up?
This one feels better.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
See ya.
Which brings us to the end. They tie in gimmicks because they both have the chest thingamajig. They tie in materials. They both use good plastics. They both use die cast. They tie in build because they're both built fairly well. They also tie in alt mode because they both do what they're trying to do well. One's trying to do the G1 cartoon. One's trying to do a more realistic take on the vehicle. They're both successful in that regard. BadCube takes the win in scale because gears should be slightly smaller than the Fanstoys offering, as well as price because it was a cheaper product for a really good figure, to be fair, for presents. Whereas Fanstoys takes accessories because it has more, it offers more. It takes hardware because it has some. It takes paint because it's beautiful. And whoever said in the comments of the previous video, I wish they'd stop doing metallic paints, I hope they never read your comment, and I hope you never comment on any other video in your life. Period. But it takes the paint, it takes the sculpt. In a weird twist of fate, it takes the transformation, because while they're both pretty smooth and elegant, the Fanstoys is both of those things and also interesting. Fanstoys is of course more G1 cartoon accurate, mainly due to the legs, and my family liked it better. For a final score, 8-2, which is a complete and utter slaughterhouse. But I also, looking at it, I do understand it. I thought it was going to be a lot closer, but looking at it and looking at the categories, I do get it. And that's that. And I think it, it all checks out. Like, I was wrong, I thought it was going to be a lot closer, and it wasn't. Maybe I'll save one of these tissues for me, you know what I mean? But let's look at it with a little bit more nuance, shall we? So if we think about best display, we take into account build, sculpt, paint, and presence. They tie in build, but Fanstoys takes the sculpt, paint, and presence, giving them the win. If we consider best transformer, we take into account build, materials, and transformation. Build and materials they tie, but Fanstoys takes the transformation, making Fanstoys the best transformer option. And if we look at most playable, we take into account build, materials, articulation, and transformation, as well as accessories. They tie in build and materials, but Fanstoys takes the articulation, transformation, and accessories. So Fanstoys is just the better overall product according to our matrix, right? And with that, I think we can get out of here. To the Patreon folks, next week, without any kind of weird things popping up, should be, capital S, should be that character-driven third-party conversation I said we were going to have. Fingers crossed, because stuff keeps popping up. And to the Skeleton Crew, there should be a Zoom meeting this afternoon. I hope I've posted something about it. Until then, thanks for listening, thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.